Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. Happy June everybody. This video is going to be me wrapping up all of the books that I've read in the month of May and then also covering some bookish and lifestyle favorites that I've had this month, kind of following the same pathway as the wrap up that I did for the month of April. But in this month, I will show you the stats from Storygraph. I didn't read as much this month because I just wasn't in the reading mood, and also there was a lot of things going on in my life that I was trying to work through and process. And I think as a mood reader, if I'm not feeling in the mood in my life, usually my hobbies kind of fall to the wayside. But I will say that I've had some wins for this month and we will chat about it. The first thing I do want to chat about, though, is going to be the 3 books that I DNF'd this month. I read 7 books, but 3 of those 7 I DNF'd, and the first one I'm going to talk about is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I think this is a funny pick because, well, what really started it off is AANHPI month. I realized that I haven't read that many romance books written by Asian authors, and I kind of just Googled and saw that Anna Huang is probably one of the most popular Asian authors out there in regards to romance. And I've heard some interesting things about Anna Huang in general, but I was like, okay, let's try the first book that I believe that she wrote, and that is Twisted Love, which is a kind of brothers, best friends, grumpy sunshine kind of dynamic. The interesting thing about Twisted Love is there's this almost, it's not necessarily mafia or gang, but there's this sort of suspense plotline because our main male love interest, Alex, at a young age, he witnesses the murder of his family, and so his main driving force in life is exacting revenge for his parents' murder and his younger sister, I believe. And then our female main character, Ava, is Alex's best friend's younger sister, and she is in college or whatever. Ava's brother is moving away, so he's like, oh, you should live next door and make sure nothing nefarious happens to her, and it's the romance between the two of them. I DNF this book at 50% because it was just too much. Not too much as in too intense or too gory or too triggering, but it was just it just felt very unserious to me. The next book that I DNF'd was Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. This one's a little bit sad for me to DNF because I really enjoyed the rest of the Rebel Blue Ranch series, but I think this love story between Cam and Dusty being the second chance romance, something that I don't really read that often. I think that this is probably the first second chance romance that I've really read, which is not that surprising to me. I don't think that is that common or that popular of a trope. But then again, I'm not the romance expert in the room, correct? But the thing that kind of threw me off in the story was these flashbacks of them in high school, because that was when their relationship developed and when they first started dating. And I assume in second chance romances, that is an element to the story where we get flashbacks of their old relationship. And, I only made it 20% into the book, but I don't know if I enjoy reading about 15-year-olds falling in love in an adult romance. I would have appreciated it just being a mention here and there, but getting to see them actually get together as 15-year-olds after 2 or 3 flashback scenes, I was kind of am I just a pessimistic person, or do I really not like reading about young adults falling in love? Not that I don't think young adults can't fall in love and can't have their own love stories, but when you pick up an adult romance, I'm I want to be more so in the adult POV. And the third book that I DNF'd was Julie Chan is Dead by Lian Zhang. And the only reason why I DNF'd this one is because it's about these 2 twin sisters that are separated after their parents die in a tragic accident. And one of these sisters is adopted by a very affluent white family, and they only want one child, so they push the twin to like their biological aunt, I believe. And they live in very completely different life circumstances. One is very rich, and one is like kind of living paycheck by paycheck. And the first 15%, which is where I read up to, Julie, her twin sister dies, and then she assumes her twin sister's identity because like the person there like mistakes her as her twin. And the thing is, getting to listen about Julie's twin sister and the kind of vapid, rich influencer kind of personality that she gets to see because she doesn't know her sister that well, getting to like have that set up, I don't think I was very happy to read that, especially given that I wasn't in the best mood this month. Getting to read about somebody who was just so vapid and so unlikable. It's not that I have to like every character that I read, but I think she was just really irritating me, and I was like, I'm going to soft DNF this, and when I am in a better place and mindset, I will go ahead and pick that back up again. But the premise of it is very interesting, very intriguing. There's a lot of suspense because she is adapting the identity of her twin sister, and like, when will she be found out kind of thing. And like, there's also this sort of question of like, why exactly did her sister die? Very interesting conversations to be had there, but I was just very irritated. So I was like, I'm gonna just place this down for now. So those were the 3 DNFs that I had. We're going to get on to the books that I've completed. So the first book that I read in the month of May and completed was The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. This one is a sort of Viking romantasy where our main character, Scylla, she is being hunted down by the queen. She's sent like people to come like take her and bring her back to the kingdom, and then she's going to be executed. She has no idea why the queen is out to get her, but her father has been like taking her to different villages, assuming different names and occupations to kind of keep them on like the low profile. And unfortunately, one day her father is killed, and while her father is dying, he tells her like, you need to go to the city named Copa, and the only way for her to go is going down the Road of Bones, which is this very treacherous path, and she's all by herself. And so she's like, how the hell am I going to transport myself down one of the most notorious, dangerous roads to this place where she's not even sure who is going to be there to assist her in like living her life? Because she promised her father that she would do this, she sets off down the Road of Bones, and one day she stumbles upon this like wagon, and so she decides to sneak onto the wagon, and unbeknownst to her, she snuck into this like mercenary group called the Axe Eyes, and they find her and they were like, should we kill her or should we keep her? So she kind of makes a bargain where she's like, I'm gonna be your cook as long as you help transport me, and then once I get to like whatever village, you can kick me out and we can be on our way. Like, we don't have to have any sort of ties together. And as they travel down the Road of Bones together, there is some sort of mystery that is showing and cropping itself up within the forest around there. They're obviously being followed by the queen's warriors, and also there's a little bit of romance that sparks up. The thing about this book is that I see a vision. I see where Demi Winters is going with this one, and I do appreciate the fact that this romantasy was definitely slow burn. I think it took up until maybe like the 40% mark for me to be like, is this who the love interest is? Because for the first 30 to 40%, our girl Scylla is like, I am afraid that I'm gonna die. And even though there is a hot man in this wagon, she doesn't think too much about the hot man. She's worried about her own survival. And I appreciate that. Like, she had her priorities straight. And then once she kind of figured that out, she's like, maybe we should look at the hot men. And I was like, fair, very fair. I will say that this one, in terms of romance, did surprise me, and I really liked and enjoyed the conversations that were being had in regards to romantic relationships. Our character, because she moved around a lot, she didn't form that many like close connections and bonds with people, so she is a little bit naive when it comes to romantic relationships, and getting to see her navigate her like first potential relationship with the love interest in this book was very interesting to see, and like getting to see like her figuring out her own agency in a relationship and what she's looking for in a relationship. I really did appreciate that. I think that this book did lull a lot though within like the middle. There were a lot of scenes of her just cooking and cooking random shit. Like she was cooking porridge, and like a lot of the time she was cooking porridge, and I was like, okay, we don't need continuous conversations about her cooking basically the same thing and then throwing in like one extra vegetable from the last scene. But I think I will be reading the second book. I am interested to see how the character develops in the romance of this one, and seeing how the last book ended, I'm very interested to see how much more of her agency and more like character development on the ends of the things that she found out about herself. At the end of book one, I am very interested to see how Demi Winters builds onto that, but I think I said it was a 3-star, but I'm like shuffling between a 2.75 to 3-star. Not a bad book at all, but I do think that it did suffer from a lot of repetitive, like not necessary scenes within a good chunk of that. But other than that, I did enjoy the romance in this. The second book that I read this month is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker. This book I gave a 5-star. This was a big win for me. I think horror is very cathartic, and such a great genre for me to read when I'm feeling kind of meh. And this one specifically was such a great read. Kylie Lee Baker's prose in this were so beautiful and so stunning. I know that Kylie Lee Baker has written, I think, YA fantasy prior to this, but this is Kylie Lee Baker's like first adult novel. And what Bat Eater follows is our main character, Cora, who is a crime scene cleanup person. Like that's her occupation and her job. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of the book, she witnesses the murder of her older sister, who is pushed in front of a train and called Bat Eater before this person runs away. And after that first chapter, she's kind of navigating the grief of losing her sister, but also the trauma of witnessing such a violent murder. And as she's continuing about her life, we are also going through the COVID pandemic with her, and then also her going through these crime scenes where she's noticing that most of the people they're cleaning up after are Asian women. And in one of the like first apartments that we get to follow her in, she finds a bat down the drain, and she starts to kind of put 2 and 2 together that there is somebody targeting Asian women specifically and leaving bats at the crime scenes. And she kind of wants to investigate and see what that is, and if possibly this person is tied to the murder of her sister. This one, although it is within the COVID pandemic, I don't think it was as heavy and as bogged down about the COVID pandemic specifically. I think this very much focuses on hate crimes towards Asian people and specifically Asian women in this book. And although the topic was very heavy, I think the way Kylie Lee Baker writes and the prose, it evokes so much emotion. And I think the way that it was done with sprinklings of like these very grotesque and very horrific scenes, and then having like the side characters be these very silly, goofy, like just normal everyday people, brought a lot of levity to the story. The author's note at the end as well was something that like made me very emotional, and I really enjoyed and appreciated that Kylie Lee Baker added that to the end. This does have quite a lot of triggers in here. Our main character has OCD, so there's certain scenes where she talks about her triggers and like how she kind of deals with like cleanliness in this, there are certain scenes where it's like repetitive on like how she scrubs herself down and everything. So that could be triggering to some people. So do look that up. And then also the elements of the COVID pandemic, although it did not bother me specifically, it could be triggering to you. And then also the hate crimes towards Asian women. There were certain scenes in here where I was like, this is a lot, but it wasn't something that I couldn't. And I did appreciate the conversations we were having. And as an Asian woman who worked with the public during the pandemic, it felt very cathartic to read certain parts of this book. And it just felt very heartbreaking to see another Asian woman experience this, whether fictional or not. It is based off of what had happened and what still happens to this day. And I just really appreciate that Kylie Lee Baker sat down and wrote something that just felt so personal. Highly recommend that you read it, and do check up triggers though, because there are some crazy ass scenes in this book. The next book that I read is going to be Volume 8 of the Apothecary Diaries. This one I'm not going to talk too much about, again, because it's the 8th volume in the light novel series, but it does follow our main character, Mao Mao, who is an apothecary. She kind of finds herself solving sort of mysteries, medical mysteries, just overall things for the court. In this book, we kind of follow her as she's navigating, furthering her career as an apothecary, and I just really enjoy the development of her character and her just really solidifying and finding out the type of young woman she wants to be and where she wants to go in her life. I really appreciate Mao Mao as a character. I do like this series, highly recommend that you pick it up. I feel like every wrap-up, I'm going to have at least one light novel in every wrap-up. And then the last book that I read for this month is Shield of Sparrows by Devoney Perry. This is my first book from Devoney Perry, but the reason why I picked this one up is because I heard a lot of fanfare about this one. Shield of Sparrows was actually quite the win. I gave it between like a 3.75 to 4 star, and this one follows our main character Odessa, where she's kind of like the spare princess in her family, to be honest. She kind of just flounces about and does whatever she does, and like the person in her family that like really holds a lot of responsibility and weight when it comes to kind of taking over the throne is her younger sister May. And her younger sister May has been kind of trained to be the wife and queen of this kingdom's prince. So I think from a young age she's been like engaged to him. And so that prince ends up coming to their kingdom because there's like these big monsters in the ocean that they hunt. And he's like coming to exterminate the monsters because it's causing issues to the kingdom. And he ends up coming to meet them in court. And the king is like, this is a great opportunity to push this engagement to marriage for May and like the prince to get married soon. But the prince is like, hold on, I don't want to marry May. I want to marry Odessa. And Odessa's standing there like, the fuck? I don't even know you. She doesn't know that man. She doesn't know anything about that man's kingdom. She's never been educated about who he even is. And so she's like, pause. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And he's like, but I insist. And he kind of brings up the treaty that the two kingdoms have that allows him to choose his bride instead of just any bride the king wants him to have. And so Odessa ends up going on this adventure to this man's kingdom and having to marry him and all sorts of things. And before she leaves to be the queen of this kingdom, the king, her father, is like, I need you to be a spy. I need you to get all the information possible. You need to, for whatever way you can, tell me all the information about the kingdom that you can figure out, because they've have like this mystery and shroud over them and nobody really knows that much about the culture. And then he's also like, oh, and on top of being a spy, if you could kill like one of the high-ranking generals in this like kingdom, that would be fantastic too. Mind you, she's not trained in battle. She's not trained in espionage. She's got no fucking clue what's going on. And she's kind of just shipped off and expected to do things. To me, it was just funny about like how quickly she has to adapt to this very ridiculous situation. It almost reminded me of Warbreaker from Brandon Sanderson, where like in the setup there's these two princesses. The older sister is supposed to marry the like god king, but they end up switching for some reason, and then the younger sister has to marry the god king. But in this one, I will say I wasn't really there for the romance, which is kind of crazy to say when you're reading a fanfic, right? But I was really there to see how the hell Odessa was not going to kill herself. She was not the smartest, and I understand why she wasn't, because she was never taught to like be quick on her feet, and she's trying to adapt the best way that she can. But it was just so interesting seeing her make bad decision after bad decision, asking the wrong person the wrong questions, and doing it so often that I was like, Odessa, how are you alive? How did you make it this far in this kingdom? There are quite a few predictable plot twists that happened in this, but there were a couple of them that actually shocked and surprised me. And I was like, Devaney, you are here for the drama. And what I enjoy in fanro is drama, but drama that like actually affects the plot and like actually affects the main character. There was one plot point that like, would I say it's a twist? A twist, a reveal, whatever you want to call it. I was genuinely like, Odessa, I can't believe this is happening to you. It was the drama, really. Like, that part alone, I was like, wow, fantastic. The thing about Shield of Sparrow that didn't get, like, that high of a rating, why I'm, like, kind of waffling between a 3.75 and a 4-star, was that a lot of these big plot points and reveals happened at, like, the very end, the very 10% of, I think at the 90% mark is when things, like, were really happening, and there was a lot of lull between, I think, like the 30 to 90%. And I wish the pacing was a little bit better, but, you know, I am very interested to see. There was a sort of cliffhanger at the end of book 1, how book 2 will come about. And, you know, maybe it'll convince me to enjoy the romance in this one. I'm not really rooting for the romance, but he's not, you know, somebody I hate, so that's a win for him, I guess. Okay, and then on to the sort of bookish lifestyle favorites. The first thing I'm going to talk about is something akin to one of the books that I read this month. After reading Bat Eater, I was very inspired to draw some fan art for this book. So I will show you my work here. It's a drawing that I'm very proud of, and I haven't really been back to the drawing board in so long, and I very much appreciate the fact that this book inspired me to be creative. And yeah, I just wanted to showcase that to you. I think it's really nice and fun to get back to my creativity, and it's really inspired me to go back to some of my favorite horrors that I've read in the past year and potentially do some more horror fan art. Maybe I'm finding my niche in drawing and art in general within the horror genre, and I'm just very surprised that horror in general could evoke so much emotion and so much feeling that can fuel my art, which is something that I haven't really been invested in that much the past few years. And for my creativity to be re-sparked from horror is something I did not predict in my life at all, but it's something that I think really brings out the best in my creative thought and my creative process. So I am definitely going to revisit some of my other favorite horror books and potentially put out some more fan art. If you want to see any more of my art once I post them, you can follow me on my Instagram, which is JYT_creative space. And then for the next thing that I really liked lifestyle-wise, recently there was this sort of anime night market that my friend invited me to. It's like this, It's kind of like a convention, like if you've ever been to an artist row, kind of one of those things, but this one's specifically for like animation and gaming. And so a lot of local artists will come, they will sell their wares, which is like stickers, posters. Some people do like clothing and all sorts of things. I really enjoy it because I get to see so much of artists' work, and also getting to see so many people inspired by the same sort of medium, but seeing how different their art styles are translated to their products and their posters is such a fun time. But there I got some new prints, as you can see in the back. I'll show you some b-roll so you can see better detail of the posters, but I got a Breath of the Wild Legend of Zelda poster, and this one has like all sorts of gear and little items that Link has in the game. So we have the shield, the sword, his bow, and like the different types of arrows, the glider he has, some of like the food ingredients that you use for cooking, like the Hylian rice, the wheat, some of the milk there, that's so cute, and like the stew, and even like little monster parts and stuff. This actually was such a surprise to see at the artist event, mostly because of the fact that I'd seen this artwork on Instagram, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, and then they had like a 2-for-1. So I got one for free, I bought one for my friend, and then I wanted one to kind of match the same sort of theme and the sort of flat lay. I think it really complements and matches the vibes of the Breath of the Wild print, and I really, really enjoy that. The artist is 1Megawatt. Unfortunately, I don't think their Etsy shop is active currently, and their Instagram, there's nothing really posted on there. I think the artist took off all of the stuff that's on their Instagram, but I will try to link the website that I found for them, and then also their Etsy, which is currently inactive. But you know, maybe by the time you watch this, the artist will have their stuff posted on there. Another artist that I bought some stuff from, I think the name is Sinundre Sharks. I got a print from them, which was a Howl's Moving Castle print. Oh my gosh, look at how cute Calcifer, like the classic breakfast scene with Calcifer there and the eggs. Like, I just love the detail on this one. And the thing is Howl's Moving Castle is my favorite Studio Ghibli story, but I find that I don't have a lot of like little trinkets from Howl's Moving Castle, and I don't often see Howl's Moving Castle stuff, even though I feel like it is quite a popular Studio Ghibli movie. I don't understand why I don't see that much of Howl art and stuff, but this one I definitely had to take home. It's so cute. And then the artist had some cute stickers, which I have two on my journals and then one on the back of my Kindle. I have this Shmishki who's reading, which I thought was the perfect vibe for a Kindle. And just look at how cute and adorable. Of course, I will be linking their website down below for you to browse. Really appreciate how cute their work is. And then also I have this Miffy one. Miffy and Miffy's friend. What is Miffy's friend's name? It starts with a B, I think. Boris? I don't know. I will have to put the little bear friend's name on the screen somewhere for you, but my guess is Boris. It could be wrong. And then the other one that I have is this Miffy with headphones. Is that not so cute? Love the art style. I was at their booth for a while because they had so many prints. Like they had Kiki's Delivery Service, Spirited Away. They had like Smitsky stickers, Miffy stickers, Calico Critter stickers, and one of the things that I really enjoyed about their little booth was that they had blind boxes of little acrylic keychains that they made, but I decided to get a blind bag of the Calico Critters, and I ended up pulling this little strawberry friend. When I was there, the whole time my mantra was support your local artists, support your local artists, and so I ended up getting quite a few things. I also got some matcha themed stickers, which I will show on B-roll. Love the vibes there. There were some matcha snacks that the artist drew on there that I personally love, and I thought that was so cute. This is me cutting in to show you another one of the stickers that I got from that night market, and look, it's a little Shohei Ohtani sticker. Is that not the most adorable thing you've ever seen? Anyway, I'll let you get back to the normal video. And then the last thing that I wanted to highlight for a favorite in the month of May is actually my journal. I had talked about it in my last wrap-up where I really enjoyed watching journaling content, and so I had found a journal cover creator on Etsy. I will link their store below, and I'll also put the store up here as well for you. This creator was so kind and was so responsive to the questions that I had asked them in DMs. And the reason why I got it off of Etsy instead of the Louise Carmen or Paper Republic is really popular, but I use a Hobonichi Weeks. I'll go ahead and do some B-roll of some close-up of this as well, but I also got like a stamp of my initials, JYT, on there. I got this burgundy elastic to close it, and then when you open it up, there's an interior pocket. There is my Hobonichi Weeks Mega, where I do all of my life planning and such, and then I have my Sterling ink, like miscellaneous. This one I'm hoping to do like more sketch work with in this one, and just have like a more dump creative kind of section with that notebook. And then in the back there is some extra pockets that are there that she so kindly like added in. This was what I was like asking her about with the trifold design, that I wanted to have like pockets in the middle instead of the outside flap, and you can put business cards or like stickers or anything. Right now I have like all the business cards that I had obtained from that anime night market, but I just enjoy how beautiful and how luxe it feels. Like, this is quite sturdy leather that the creator works with, but it just has such a nice hand feel, and I just feel so much more motivated to like open up my journal, do my scrapbooking, do my brain dumps, and like logging my reading and whatever in this notebook. It just has such a nice luxe feeling, and as someone who enjoys like aesthetic and like just having that kind of tactile enjoyment, having like a journal set up like this just feels like a dream, and I can't wait for this journal to be with me on different parts of my life. And also, like, the seller in general was just so kind and so responsive. And I also saw that a lot of people put like little charms and things, but I have like the Libra sign, a little moon, a cowboy hat, and a sword that I thought was cute, and it just makes this nice little tactile fun thing on my journal. Despite going through some stuff, journaling in a very nice fancy setup has brought quite a bit of serotonin to my life, so I really do appreciate having something that's just so nice and like such a little treat to open up ever so often and journal with. But that's enough of me yapping. At the beginning of this, I was thinking it's gonna be quick. I didn't read that many books this month, and I don't really have that many things to feature, but you know, as a professional yapper, I will take as much time as possible to chat about honestly anything. So I do appreciate that you made it to the end and watched this video in its entirety, or if you skipped around, I appreciate that as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you had a 5-star read or had any like lifestyle favorites for this month, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. But if you've made it this far, let's put some little flame emojis in the comments for our bestie Calcifer. That would be very cute. But thank you again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!